Yeah. Oh, great. We're starting. All right. Welcome, everybody. How's everybody doing? Can the folks online hear me? Wave if you can hear me. I'm on. You've got headphones on. You're waving. People can hear me. All right. Am I clear enough? I got thumbs up. Sounds great. All right. I want to welcome everybody to, I guess this is the first ever EIC roundtable with no roundtables at all. We have all square alignment for you. So what the purpose of this is to not only introduce you to the EIC and the folks at the EDA, the Economic Development Authority, and Stockton University, but to open discussion with all of you industry experts to talk about what you are looking to have happen with the industry moving into 2024, and what you see as positive and negative aspects of esports as a whole through these various talking points. So what I did was arrange it into a couple of different segments. And I figured we would go through those, and those are amateur esports and the K through 12 through higher education scene, the video game industry and its ecosystem as compared to just esports and its ecosystem, and finally gambling on esports and that aspect of the future of the industry. So it really is meant to be a very free-flowing discussion. I don't want to just sit up here and talk. So the only thing that I require is, because we're doing this broadcast digitally and we want to include all of our folks online there, we have to speak into a mic one at a time for them to be able to hear us, because otherwise it sounds very, very garbled and you can't make it out. So my interns, Alex and James from Stockton University, wave your hands, guys. Hey, look at that, everybody. Interns, hard at work. They will hand out a mic to anybody who wants to speak on any point. But really, I'm just going to go through these bullet points and then just see if I can get feedback on these specific areas for how you guys feel about the current state of these things. Everybody in this room has different interests within the esports industry. Here, Alex, you can take this. But I think it's very important to bring these voices together in a single space and discuss these things, and then kind of craft the conversation moving forward. I want to first introduce the EIC to everybody that doesn't know who we are and what we are. We were created roughly 2 years ago by the Economic Development Authority of the state of New Jersey in partnership with Stockton University. We're a nonprofit. We are aligned with Stockton, but we are not part of Stockton. A lot of times people think that we have something to do with Stockton's esports program or the like, but that's not the case. And we're focused on a variety of different economic development aspects of esports, the workforce development aspect, making sure that the education aligns with the jobs that are out there in the business, the community aspect, making sure that this incredible passion for K through 12 esports is met with real skills that can be developed. And then also the business aspect in terms of attracting top level events to Atlantic City, having the right operators in here, and trying to work on New Jersey as a whole as a destination for esports. So that's why we were created. We are sponsored by some incredible companies, many of whom are in this room today, specifically SHI, Lenovo, and Intel, along with the EDA in Stockton are our charter members. We also have PCS Cybersecurity and a variety of other groups like the Boys and Girls Club and City of Atlantic City Youth Services that also participate with the center. So in addition to working on these business development efforts, we work very hard on a community aspect. We have programming in here 4 days a week for kids that are as young as age 9 and as old as age 16 or 17. And we feel like building these programs for that audience really helps not only expose esports, but builds this foundation and try to feed into Stockton University and the various programs that are around the state. So we have some experts here that are focused on the education side of esports and K through 12. So I want to talk about that for a second. We invited, obviously, groups like Garden State Esports to be here, but because we're running this 1 to 3 p.m., a lot of them are educators that can't be here. But I'd like to highlight what that looks like. When we talk about professional sports, obviously the NFL and NBA and all of these major leagues gets a lot of attention because of the amount of revenue they generate, but it's really the amateur side that feeds that entire cycle. Everything from Little League to, Pop Warner football. That's what not only builds the interest, but that's where there's coaching jobs and a variety of other financial benefits to the community in terms of getting involved. So I think esports is kind of this thing. We're at a period of time where we're starting to see the infrastructure across K through 12 get built out in districts across the state. And that's really critical, because if you don't have a place for kids to participate and to come together and to build that camaraderie and build that team element, then it's hard to kind of take it to the next level. So some of the highlights that I think that I think are really, really critical here are the participation rates of New Jersey schools. So 5 years ago, we had less than 20% of schools with any sort of esports program. And in that short period of time, 5 years later, the participation rate is over 60% of all school districts in New Jersey. And I personally hear of different districts planning initiatives pretty much on a weekly basis. But Garden State Esports is one of the largest organizations in the United States that does this. So from people that are affected by the K through 12 sector in this room, what are your thoughts on the expansion of high school and even middle school esports, and what does that mean to your business? So that's the first thing that I would like to pose to this room. I know SHI, you guys are focused on a ton of different initiatives at the school level. How does that growth help you guys? So if anybody has a comment on that, that's what I would like to specifically address. Otherwise, I'm going to call on people like a teacher. Melissa McKenty. Got to turn it on. Yeah, sorry.
Is that better?
Hey, there we go.
We've seen a tremendous amount of interest at the high school and even middle school level, because after the pandemic, kids are not really very interested in school, and they don't necessarily have a place that they could go. So by bringing esports into these schools, it's giving students who normally wouldn't find themselves on, the field or on the court, it's giving them an opportunity to be able to engage with one another, learn how to, compete, learn how to be, motivated to learn, and also see what types of career opportunities there are. So we're seeing more interest in not just having club level opportunities for students, but also seeing curriculum at the high school level and even collegiate level, as Stockton is well aware, being very, very much more appreciated around the country, but especially in this area.
Does anybody in the room have kids that participate in esports? I have hands that go up. Josh or David back there, can you guys talk to your experience with your own kids, not from a business standpoint, but just what your thoughts are, whether good, bad, or ugly? Because I know, there are a lot of parents out there that we have to educate about the positives and negatives of this, and I'm curious to get that feedback.
Yeah, sure. So my son competes in Valorant, and he's 14. So I mean, his experience really in the space, because, well, one dad does this for a living as well. It's kind of there's some unfair advantages maybe because I've been grooming him for quite some time, but really his experience in the space has been more about the team elements, but through that process of working on a team has now uncovered elements into other industry sectors that hasn't actually, his focus has been less. He's starting to see less of the competition and starting to focus more on industry. So he's looking at content creation, broadcasting, et cetera. So through that process, that's been really interesting to see that shift.
And I would echo not only that the content creation segment of that is critical, but all of these, what I love these buzzwords, and you're going to hear a lot of them today, but transferable skills, right? That's something that I think we talk about with higher education all the time, is if you can teach a kid something at 14 years old that can be used in a variety of industries. I don't know any business that isn't using this new way of social media advertising, with whether it's, attempted looks at grassroots or just, clever little mashup videos. But it feels like whether you're a brick and mortar company or you're an esports group, it makes no difference. That's the tactic you're using now to find your audience. So the quicker, younger players get these skills built into their day-to-day gaming, and a lot of them do. A lot of them learn how to stream right away. They learn how to build a short segment broadcast, podcasting, etc. I think that is something that's really, really needs to be passed on, and that leads to a lot of opportunities in different industries.
Yeah, just a follow up on that as well. We've been in the esports industry now for 7 years. We build facilities across the U.S. We work with over 120 colleges and universities. We work very closely with SHI, helping build out spaces for their clients. But what's very interesting that we're seeing, and this is sort of kind of goes along with the experience with my son, we've developed a full 4-year high school curriculum, which has been adopted here now in the Workforce Pathway project in the state of New Jersey. We were awarded that project. So we're working with Stockton University, Camden County College, but we're working with high schools across the U.S. across New Jersey. And what's really interesting is that the high schools that have already adopted our 4-year high school curriculum, 93% of participants in our course are not even competing. So there's a massive shift in learning industry and understanding industry. That's more of their goal rather than it is to compete. Because I think what is starting to fall in line is, competition is really that 1%. It's to getting to that level of professionalism. But students are wanting to utilize the vessel of esports to then learn all of these, as you said, transferable skills. So we're seeing that play across the state right now as we speak, which is really interesting to see.
Yeah, it's no different than if a football team had a team manager, right? So, right. Student might not be physically desirous of getting his butt kicked, but wants to learn the game and wants to learn the logistics of running a team and handling travel schedules, and those components of a business are just as critical, right? David, you've mentioned your kid has experience playing esports. I'd love you to share that.
Similarly, my daughter just plays video games casually and does it casually, but she's a media arts major at Emerson College in Boston. So similar to what this gentleman was saying.
Beautiful new campus. I heard Emerson just got done building, right?
Yep. So she does film and cinematography. So she works with the esports team at Emerson. So their content creation, their broadcasts that they do there. So again, esports has been an entryway for her into getting experience in film and broadcasting, which is eventually what she wants to do. But esports has been an entryway for her to do that type of activity.
That's incredible. Did she do stuff in high school?
Yeah, not like I said, she played video games casually,
Casually.
but yeah, she did film and other things in high school as well.
Anthony, what about you? So we got to bring the mic over here. Yeah, well, I know you're the correct way, that Anthony.
Hello, everybody. My kids have been playing esports for a long time. I've sort of forced them at first, right? But during COVID, it was an important thing to keep people kind of communicating together because they were staying at home. So the local school hasn't created an esports team yet, but the town did. And they were able to play the Boys and Girls Club against Atlantic City, which is, Linwood versus Atlantic City. It's kind of a rare thing. I don't want to be the sour one here. My concern is Eric's like, you're doing it again. No, my concern is to develop job skills that are something that's transferable to jobs, right? So it's playing games is ubiquitous, right? That's what people are doing nowadays. That's the language in a way, but where are the skills that we can then take and develop marketable skills for them to get jobs? And, Rob, you were telling me about college, how it's really starting to take off in college, right? And you're probably the smartest person on esports in my mind. Can you tell me, I'm going to put you on the spot, how they develop jobs? I'm going to pass the microphone to you, how those jobs are developed.
What a way to hand it off. So a couple of things you broached here, and career development, we'll get to the end. So by rambling, please somebody stop me, but let's K through 12 specifically before we get to college. Let's talk about the field of play before we're developing careers, before we're learning what is, how to be responsible for each other, teamwork, some points, physical fitness to be able to perform. Where's the field of play that's safe for K through 12 today in esports? And I think that's a big question. Something I wanted to bring up to everybody here today is over the past few years, the overinvestment or whatever you want to call it within esports itself has now brought free-to-play platforms. And if anybody's used social media, free-to-play means the kids become the product. Is that where we, as this group and this roundtable in New Jersey, want to see this field of play to establish what traditional athletics have done for myself? I was a rower at Atlantic City High School. What has done for many people in order to grow into individuals and build their careers. It doesn't matter if they're learning on the job there, but they know how to work with people. So one of the biggest things before we get into that is, where's this field of play and where does everybody else feel that that's going to be? And if it's a free-to-play model, which many providers in K through 12 are now going out with, is everybody comfortable with that? And if not, what is this room prepared to do in order to make sure that the kids aren't the product for the next 5 years in this field of play? And if esports and part of you're learning how to build a team, you're learning how to build a computer, this is part of it. It's part of the career development that comes with gaming and getting these kids involved. And we have less kids playing baseball, we have less kids playing football. So this is very important. But now we have a field of play that we don't know where that data is now going. And I think that is a very important thing to talk about. Now at college, what we're seeing in college, and the past few years I've helped develop NA Star League, which has 30,000 college participants and 800 schools across North America. This is the largest growth percentage-wise we've seen in participation in North American esports. So we have finally a market. And from amateur esports or otherwise, okay, well, how are we playing? The same question is, what is this field of play? And then from even a Stockton perspective, how can we turn this into careers that are really going to help? Because I taught sports management 15 years ago. And what I would say to kids is make sure you have a good business background, which I think is very important if you're going to build in this career. But learning how to participate under your school flag in college. This is now becoming important because less kids are playing these traditional sports. We know that there's plenty of careers, and in this room, there's more careers that are going to be developed, and I think you're doing a great job with it. But at the end of the day, from K through 12, the safety of the kids, I think, is a concern we need to talk about. And then also, really, in the growth in the amateur side, how are we supporting these schools besides the venues themselves and the programs? So I want to bring up a lot of more questions than I think answers, but painting the picture of where K through 12 is, I think, is at a critical point that now with free-to-play programs that have raised $106 million, or another one that's raised $50 million, the intent here in the next few years is, all right, where's this field of play? So I'm gonna pass that back to the group in K through 12.
Yeah, I think those are incredibly important points. You know, one of the things, Anthony, that I know you are uniquely qualified to answer is the peripheral skills you can develop around esports, whether it's reporting or news creation. I mean, you were instrumental in the creation of Esports Illustrated, and I see the benefit of younger kids learning journalism and learning how to cover the stuff that they're doing and do that. Do you feel that that is part of that transferable skills that we're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, we have some Stockton interns in our Esports Illustrated, and they do very well. Well, like Rob, I think we're talking about rowing. You know, my son's in rowing, both of them, but rowing, they teach you a lot of things like organization, teamwork, fixing the boat. Very specific things that I don't know if it's directly transferable, but those are very good reasons to be in sports. It's all the camaraderie and learning how to work together. And I think in today's day and age, when everybody, you look at a bunch of kids, they don't even look up anymore because they're on their phones, at least at my house. You wonder whether those skills, I mean, whether esports needs to include, I hate to sound cynical, basic skills like communication, right? They were talking about like content creation. I think we need to talk about talking. You know, we need to say, this is how you look somebody in the eye and have a conversation. And this is how you create a goal. And this is how you bring up interesting, you know, how to win friends and influence people kind of stuff. So I think a lot of the successful programs that we have to start looking into is what is the world like today? I mean, we were talking about that earlier this year, right? Like, is communication a course that now needs to be taught for basic communication, not like whether you're standing up in front of a microphone. I know how to do that. It's how to talk to other human beings and organize themselves to create a you know, some sort of group goal. So yes, I think that part of whatever we do at esports has to include life skills now, because the world has changed faster than we thought it would, and there's more surprising ways that we expected. And in order to catch up on some of the things that we're losing, we need to go back a little bit. And I think esports is a good way to do that.
Because it matches a passion, right? So if kids are interested in because of a passion standpoint, then they're willing to give you their attention to learn these other skills. Is that essentially the premise that we're...
Yeah, whatever they're interested in. If they're interested in whatever, I mean, video games are now the interest, right? It used to be about music. When we launched Esports Illustrated, it was about what is ubiquitous now. It was music back in the 80s. Remember that? That was a great time. But now it's video games, and video games are a little different because they're not as easy to share. They're more like sometimes solitary experiences, but you also have online games, but you don't really see the other people. They're not in front of you all the time. They used to be on your couch. Now there are some name that, you know, does something nasty to you and it runs away on Call of Duty. But it's how do we rebuild the world, the things from the old world that we feel are important. And if they're interested in anything, and yes, they're interested in video games, then let's use that as the means to get their attention.
Let's go back to the point you were making, Rob, about the kids being the asset that they are going to be utilizing in terms of facilitating these free-to-play leagues. I know that shift has just happened recently where one of the largest scholastic esports companies has gone with a free model. And people say, well, it's never going to be free because they got to be making money from somewhere. I've always said the biggest draw to esports is viewership. I've given this example before. The most attended live sports event in Stockton University history was a soccer game that drew a little bit less than 3,000 people, but 155,000 people watched their Rocket League team at DreamHack a couple of years ago. So from just a pure, I'm trying to advertise my brand, whatever that brand is, to an audience, and I want to know who that audience is. You know, esports is great because it has this massive captive audience. But how do we as parents? I have an 11-year-old who loves Roblox and Fortnite and all those things. How do I make sure that she doesn't become this data mining project for these groups, and that her scholastic experience matches what mine would have been playing baseball or something like that?
Yeah, I think you touched on a couple of things, and first the business side of the kids become the product in this situation, and you know how for people that are in businesses and for-profit businesses, you know, how are we going to make money on this? You can look back from 2017 to today, and it's been only a couple categories have done very well. Media viewership and media rights has not developed like we thought it would, and it may never do that because listen, games. it's not just football or baseball. It's, everybody likes a different game, a different genre, a different mode or a meta within a game. There's some people that play Call of Duty and they love Warzone, and some people play multiplayer and some just do the single player. That fragmentation, I think, makes finding the business model even harder in media, which now brings it to data mining, and brings it to a couple of the topics we talked about. I think that, really to prevent kids from becoming free to play, that this is the schools, and I don't want to say politics needs to be involved because that's going to run everything. However, the schools and the teachers making sure that, they know the programs they're getting involved with, they know the field of play, and they know in and out of what's going on here in order to get to what Anthony just said of making sure that we're getting the benefits out of these programs. On the flip side, to say viewership is going to be there, and either K through 12 or college esports in the next 3 years is going to generate enough views to pay for what it is. I don't see that. And I don't see that for a few reasons. One, the fragmentation we just talked about, but two, when you have something on Twitch or YouTube, it's very difficult for, and sponsorship's difficult for sports. But Wawa, for example, they're in New Jersey and now they have one in Florida, which I just found out wild. But they're a regional company. They spend a lot of dollars, and that's somebody that you'd want for, sponsoring a program like this or sponsoring Stockton University and sponsoring these views. But they can't look at it and say, well, 60% of these views are in the United States, but I have no idea where they're from. And I think Twitch and YouTube make this harder because that's the primary viewing platform where you don't know where the views are coming from. And the advertisers now, they're looking away saying, I'm not getting the benefit. And if they're not getting the benefit, they're not paying. If they're not paying, where's the dollars coming from? So now we're back to data, and now we're back to K through 12 and these college kids. And that's not going to lead to great things, I don't think.
Is that an issue for a YouTube? And let's get this mic out to Derek, make a point. But is that an issue for a YouTube or Amazon, parent company of Twitch, that they can address in terms of how they work with revenue? Because is it just they keep the data private, so you can't, as a user, be able to go back and say, hey, I get 1 million views, but
I mean, I'd love to tell Google and Amazon how to run their business, but it's probably not realistic.
Okay, but I'm saying they're keeping that information private for their own purposes, and that's
They have their own $1 trillion company reasons for it that
that's
might not be addressed in the room today.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Sorry, is it Rob? Yeah. So, anyway, my voice carries anyway, so hopefully. So we're ex-bankers who decided to leave the bank, and we decided to start our own business. And we're doing exactly what you're talking about here. We started a company that does more portable data. And one of the things we started looking at was the fact that basically in the US, and we've been to a lot of data forums in the US here, listening at it, it's a bit of a Wild West as it relates to data. It's the reason why everyone's getting sued in the US by the FTC, right, for not following COPA. And if you ask gaming companies how many kids do they have online, they don't tell you. That's because they don't know, or they don't want to tell you because they're scared they're going to get sued. They don't have it, because a lot of us, just like myself, have a young son. When I sign him up for gaming, I put it under my profile, right? Because it's easier. It's so much easier. And I'm worried about his data. And so what we decided to do was we built something, and I don't have an NDA, but we're working, thanks to ESTA, we're working with a group in here to look at this to help kids and parents give consented data. And because if you give consented data, that one, it gives parent guardian information as well. And the data that you're providing, who you're providing it to, and it comes there and you can revoke it when you want. But to your point, one thing we saw at the bank was all of your data is the gold standard, right? It's more valuable than any other money out there. They will take your data and they sell it. In fact, we don't really need to ask for your data. People have your data and they sell it out to other big companies. And it's only getting worse out there as more kids go on to gaming. And that's why we want to start in gaming, because there's a huge gap there, right? We see a huge missing part where kids are putting their data out there, whether it be any game they do. If most kids have a Switch, they have a Game Boy, they both have PlayStation, they're just giving their data out over and over again. And a lot of times people don't know what their kids are connected to. And that's what we're trying to fix. But to your point, as it's growing, it's only getting worse. And especially with social media, the data is out, your kids' data is being out there, and it's being aggregated, and it's being determined what they're going to be and what they're going to do, and algorithms you can't possibly fathom, And so we don't think it should be private. We think it should be, that people should own their own data, because to your point, Amazon, Meta, they have their own machinations of what they want to do with their data. So I do think this is coming. I think it's a big thing. And to be fair, if we didn't build it, the government's going to force it on you anyway, because CFPB is forcing people to own their own data anyway. So companies are going to have to do this.
So this is probably a perception more than a reality, but a lot of times the EU seems to be ahead of the curve on data regulation.
Well, they are, and that's not a perception. The GDPR basically set the standard, right? The US has nothing like that. Every state is trying to do their own thing.
So
California.
do you know anything about where they're at with this specific issue when it comes to pre-adult data usage for esports?
Yeah, so they just kind of put something out, and I think about a bunch of lawyers much smarter than me have been kind of parsing through this. But frankly, Congress has to act to do something, and the way Congress is right now takes, I would say an act of veto to get something through, anything going. So I think it's going to take time, but I think for states are moving a little bit faster. But the problem is every state is different, right? But I think a lot of them are very worried, one, not just about data as it relates to gaming, they're also worried about social media and AI. But because of that, all this data that people are holding on kids is about to get regulated. And that's one of the things that we're trying to stay ahead of, but I imagine most groups here are going to have to stay ahead of as well, especially if you're talking about K through 12.
Sage, good to see you.
Thank you. So we work in custom software development, custom hardware development, as well as cloud computing. And we're dealing with this exact same issue with a lot of internal tools where it's like, hey, we need to collect data. Data is important, but we need to make sure that the data that we're collecting stays internal. And the problem it's becoming is, hey, now we're becoming more aware. The lawyers are becoming more anxious about collecting this data. But now we're developing machine learning models that are becoming even better at figuring out intent. So the other day I was working with Fastly, and we were figuring out using their CDN, okay, just by loading the assets from the CDN, we can now determine what your intent was going to become. So now if we're loading an SVG image, we can probably determine that you're going to click on that. What's the outcome of that? And now we're able to build a model based off of just that whole trajectory of what we assume you're going to do. So now we're no longer collecting exact data from that user. And now age doesn't play as much of a factor because now we are anonymizing it. We're saying, okay, we assume these parameters. So we are moving faster than really what I think any of us can regulate on this. So saying the child, I believe, is going to continue to become the product because, companies like us, unfortunately, we're paid to circumvent a lot of this regulatory for internal companies. Hey, we're having this problem. Okay, great. Here's how we can combine that with software, hardware, cloud. But the good part is that we are now, because we're able to predict these models a little more, we can also now inject poor data into these models, right? So we talk about these hallucinations in AI, and I think it's going to really become a more of a software combating the software type of thing, where we're now anonymizing these clicks. Hey, we're now asking the CDN for more random things to load in ahead of time. Okay, great. Now it's throwing off our algorithm. Now we're ruining the software. It's going to become a constant battle, especially as we look at cybersecurity, because we need that user data to be able to determine how to prevent a cyber attack, cyber breach. The more data, the better, so that we can train our models, train our people. So it is going to become a constant problem, but I believe software and combination of incredibly talented people like anonymizing data is going to become a crucial part for that.
From an education standpoint, I apologize, it's very bright, so my eyes get, when I look just in that direction, so I have these huge banners covering up a lot of the brightness coming in. But from an education standpoint, when we talk about building programming at Stockton, is this data element something that we're thinking about or exploring in terms of that somehow being built into the program? Because it sounds like working with data, whether it's with AI or these things, is core to this entire thing, even if it's from a marketing standpoint or trying to get programs together. Is that anything that's on our radar now from an education standpoint? I'm giving it to our resident experts. And by the way, if anybody online would like to make a point or say something, just hit the raise your hand and one of our interns will unmute your mic, and everybody should be able to hear you if technology has worked.
So I would say for part of that question, yes, it's on our radar. So we have a series of different classes, both from a hardware, software perspective, that we see some of those themes in there. Relative to that, it's going to progress as the rest of our curriculum progresses in some of the other schools like computer information systems, computer processing. We also look at the data side from more of the marketing perspective. So even in the curriculum, we're working with a current vendor, and I'm going to say resident expert in the esports marketing space and also retail marketing space to build in some of those considerations and how do we look at integrating some of the current trends in there. I would say as far as curriculum, it's all about leveraging our resources. So we have an advisory board. We actually just had our first meeting. Some folks here today are on that. And we're going to continue to tap in to make sure it's relevant to what we're trying to do. And if I may, just since it got passed to me, I was going to say Anthony did pay me outside to also be cynical with him today a little bit. So I just want to let you know that happened outside. So I apologize, but
We're here to speak the truth, not to sugarcoat everything. It's important to have good, honest discussions, open discussions about problems as well as victories. You have to recognize the challenges that we're facing, because I know as a parent, I don't love the idea of my 11-year-old being obsessed with video games all the time and spending every waking moment being in front of a computer. I want her to have a natural childhood, so to speak, and spend time outdoors. So I believe in balance, right? But I also do see the merit of this industry and this ecosystem.
so that's where, if I can, Anthony, and I'll pass it to you. We heard from Josh, who talked about, seeing this change in pathway, right? The shift from the competitive side into the industry. Rob, you shared a little bit too about like the career progression, and Anthony, you started that conversation off. One thing that I think we should be careful with is as we start to use these analogies from K through 12 and saying it's like every other sport and they're participating on a football team. And if we have someone managing that, just because individuals develop those skills doesn't mean they go out and they run a Fortune 500 company. And I think we have to be careful. We don't, we're going to position ourselves out of some opportunities like having a solid foundation at the post-secondary level. And that's where we have to get and work with the industry to value some level of a credential, whether it is truly a bachelor's degree of some sort, an advanced certificate. We've seen this in other spaces. If we look at hospitality and tourism, that's what our curriculum is built as a model. If our industry partners don't support that, there's no barriers to entry. And even if you think about esports, we've removed a tremendous amount of barriers to entry that we see in other sports in the K through 12 system. So again, I think it's a lot of positioning in the narrative that we create now, and then how does it funnel, to create these career opportunities that they're more than just transferable, but where are some of those developmental areas in there? And we're showing that we value those specific skills that we're getting and leveraging.
I did pay you off, didn't I? If we're being honest, I think all of us are trying to figure out what this world is. We don't know. There are no rules. No one wrote this. No one gave us a primer. And when the world changes faster and faster, I mean, there are a lot of people here in this room that I really respect their view on things. I would say authority, but when the world changes as fast as it does, I don't know if anyone has authority. So there's people that understand it. They can maybe make some guesses as to where it's going to go. I mean, essentially, when we say esports, we're talking about video games, right? And I actually think it makes more sense to call it the video game entertainment world, because that is what it is. And esports tends to put it into a weird category that I don't believe is a real thing, as much as just the general video game entertainment landscape. But we don't know where, like to Rob's point, we don't know how to monetize it yet, right? We don't know, even if we get eyeballs, how do we do that? I mean, with Esports Illustrated, we get $1.5 million a month, and we're still trying to figure out, like, well, where's the money in this? And what we think as our company is that we see developing skills when it comes, especially with Onyx City, and what we call real money video games. Like the idea that you can create and intermingle gambling and video games. It's for adults only. Requires a lot of technologies to make sure the kids aren't on it. Requires technologies to make sure that you don't have over gambling. But I think all of us could use a class, like some perspective, and maybe this is what this is. This is what I see. What do you guys see? Because I don't think anyone knows. And I think these kind of meetings help as long as we're honest about the fact that, I wouldn't stand up and say, oh, this is what you guys should know. I have no idea. And I think that with AI, it just makes the pace that much faster. So we wake up on a Tuesday and like, what just happened last night? But going back is to Noel, it's like we need to figure out what's the junk and what's the talk. The esports industry is overloaded with hype. It's just crazy, right? Like we could do this, we're going to partner with this group, we're going to do this, and it's like none of that stuff works.
That's from the professional team standpoint. If you're
I think
talking
it's
about the hype.
everywhere it's everywhere. And then you think about it, because the esports word, kind of like crypto, you use a word in your brain, it sections it off into this other, maybe more legitimate thing, maybe less legitimate, but it's just people playing video games. Like they never forget that. And I think the words hide that. How are we going to make money off other people playing video games? How are we going to teach kids to do something around other people playing video games? If you just keep it that way, your frame of mind changes, I think.
What I would say is the playing of the video games is the least important part of the ecosystem from my mind, right? What goes into building a video game and marketing a video game and all of the jobs that go into that cycle of the esports ecosystem. I agree with you completely. Video games and esports, the only real difference is one set of those video games is much easier to be competitive in creating competitions around and tournaments around. And there's a lot of other video games where it's far more abstract and measuring competition doesn't make a lot of sense, like Assassin's Creed, right? A lot of people love Assassin's Creed and just play it because they have to wander around ancient Egypt or Rome or wherever else. It's not like I want to compete against you. But that's a $1 billion franchise, but it's not an esport, right? So that's the difference between those. But my question, I guess, is you just made a very, very valid point that this is a industry that's changing so rapidly with buzzwords and investments and IPOs and stuff like that. Where is the real meat of the industry? Where is the lasting power?
What is it that we want to do? Right? What is it that we want to do around this space? Like, do we want to teach people to make games? I don't think, I think teaching people to be casters and content creators, I think it's great. I mean, my kids do it too.
I think it's an element of it.
But it doesn't make, it's not a career, right? It could, some people, very small amount of people, it's a career. So what is it that we ultimately want to do? Because when you think about, if you create a game, you can go in and say, okay, I'm going to create a game and that game will have an ecosystem around it. A lot of people try to do that. The most successful company, by the way, I think is Epic, Fortnite. I don't think there's anyone that's ever done it any better. And if if the Oasis from Ready Player One exists, it's going to be that company that creates it. And I think that company has a real shot at creating, sounds kind of corny, but alternate realities for people. I think you can potentially have that jumping off point. Like I live in this world and I also live in that world. Right. And I think, is that what we want to teach people? Do we want to encourage that? Whether we like it or not, that's where it's going. So do we agree with it? Do we fight it? It's hard to determine.
Let's get a comment from online and then Josh will get you in the back. Let's see. We cannot hear him on. We need here. Give me the remote control real quick for the TV right there. It's possible that it's just nope, it's up. Can you unmute? I'm on. He's still muted. And then we'll get Victor. Just unmute everybody. He is unmuted. So then why can't we hear him? Best laid plans.
Hello.
Oh, you're speaking now.
There
We can
go.
hear you.
It was my audio on my end. It wasn't quite.
Everybody,
Right.
welcome Amon Green, former national champion with University of Nebraska. He runs the University of Nebraska esports program. Green Bay Packers all-time leading rusher and a friend.
Yeah, and a badass at Halo and Madden.
Yeah.
So, there you go. But to the conversation I'm hearing, so I'm hearing different opinions, different ideas, different suggestions, there's a lot of different everything, which is good, which is great. And what I've come out of what I just heard and what I know I'm doing right now in terms of curriculum, and some of that's been spoken about here. So with the curriculum, I teach, and I got it via the Dell. I worked with Dell for a few years when I was at Lakeland University previously, before I was at University of Nebraska, and they sent me the curriculum. I studied it before I started teaching it a year after the fact to really get it in, get it down, understanding it, making it a part of my my mindset. And a lot of it is kind of on what I've been hearing today, which is good. But to really answer the question of the last, I know his name, I just can't remember his name right now. I just had the conversation going. Anthony, what are we doing and why, when, what, where, and why about esports, basically. And so for the part of the, which is a very huge and important part, is the kids side of it, you know, making sure we have an environment for our kids to go into and can have fun, it's safe, they get something out of it, and then they can make the decision at the end of the day, or in the end of their timeline of they're about to go to college or they're about to graduate college. Do I want to work in this industry? And so how my curriculum is set up is it starts with creating a safe environment for the gamer. So just like myself, starting in Pop Warner football, starting in baseball when I was 10, you know, we are in an environment where we have coaches that are adults that either have professional experience or have some type of football, baseball experience, and obviously leadership skills, and also, you know, way they can know how to socialize to a young adult or young person. And so that's the first step. And so in my class, we develop the students. I start basically with student development, where I'm teaching the students, when you log on to any app, not just a gaming app, but any app, what information are you actually given? So you're talking about the name and the data information, which is collected by gaming companies and every company out there online, which is right. But for young adults and young kids getting into it, it's like when you sign up into that account, whose name are you using? I teach that. So we talk about that first. So obviously, if you're a kid under the age of 13, you're not using your name. You're going to ask your mom and dad for that permission to say, hey, you know, it's this account that's asking me for my name and address. Mom, dad, what do I do next? And it's like you hand it off to them. So that is teaching that, developing that young adult to say, hey, you know, somebody under the age of 12 that's logging on to Epic to create a Fortnite account, is not them. It's going to be under mom and dad's name until they're 18 or 21. And then they are young adults that then can make that conscious decision. But then we also talk about understanding digital literacy, where it's a lot of kids and a lot of people out there that may not have played on a PC by the age of college. So it's understanding the awareness, having that emotional intelligence of awareness around you too. You know, then another aspect, like we already talked about, online safety, the cybersecurity part, and then also the biggest part that was mentioned is respectful online behavior. So when you're in a chat room, when you're in a group chat, how do you talk? How do you text? What are you words are using? We know that if somebody's yelling at you in a group text, everything's capitalized. So if you're doing those things, these are the way that you're going to create enemies real fast. But this is also the proper way where you talk and text properly. You pay attention, almost like you're in a room like everybody is right here on the screen. When you look at somebody's face, you could tell if they're happy, mad, or sad, or getting angry. You can see that. You can't see that online. So you got to make sure you use your words wisely. So I'm training that and teaching that at the college age in my classes. But also this curriculum can be used all the way down to I say at least down to maybe 5th, 6th graders and maybe 4th graders, maybe. But 3rd grade, 4th, you know, it's more just getting into the game and teaching them how to have fun, but also teaching them, you know, the proper way of having the online etiquette out there. And the name for it is what's in the curriculum. It's called digital citizenship. So it's just like sportsmanship. So when I started playing Pop Warner football and flag football, it was respect your coach, respect your teammates, respect your opponent. Say please, say thank you to your coaches for coaching us. Say please and, you know, good job to your teammate, encouraging them. Even if it's an opponent, you're saying, hey man, good job, good tackle, or good hit, or that was a great pitch. You shook me out on, having that type of mindset to win as you grow in that environment, and that is still being taught on every level of sport or esport, then the kid understands that, okay, we're going to have wins. We're going to have losses. This is how I deal with it. I don't reach out and lash out and saying, oh, you suck online because you beat me. No, you just say, hey, man, good game. Good job. I got to get better. I got to look at my mistakes and then move on and get ready for the next game. So we're developing the students that are in esports classes to say, hey, just like traditional sports, you're going to have your good days, you're going to have your bad days, but this is how you handle them. And it's people like myself and it's other teachers around at the college level that are teaching and developing students to start them here first before we get into the big picture of things of making money and playing for a pro team and earning a scholarship at the college level. But before there, every college coach right now that I know that are at Boise State, that are at Maryville, that's at Northwoods, they're looking at GPAs, they're looking at how they collaborate with other people, including themselves as a head coach, and can they survive in their environment where they got to jump on a team area like Overwatch 2, where it's 5v5. That means they got 4 other people that they got to get to know and learn, and at least have respect for, to compete with them on I say, not just an intelligent level, but just a respectful level where you're not then, telling them, hey, to your teammate, you suck because you didn't know the call out and you should have been on the left side of the map instead of the right side of the map. And not having that conversation, then we'll know as faculty members, we've done our job.
That goes to what you were saying, Anthony, earlier about just basic communication skills and that needing to be part of this whole concept. Let's go to Victor online, and then we'll go to Josh Kell afterwards. Thank you so much, Aman. Hi, Victor.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can.
Perfect. So quick introduction. Victor Gomez, Seton Hall Esports Manager. I've been in this space since 2013 as a student, both building up the program here at Seton Hall and also playing competitively. I think we've hit a lot of good points. One thing that I would caution as ever is thinking about where we actually have dominion over. So we hear talk about data and data privacy, and to some extent, literacy and digital literacy we can teach. But very much so that is the work of policy to move forward that talk. It is not in the realm of a high school teacher, a college professor to say, hey, this is what everyone must do in order to stay safe. We can give those recommendations, certainly, but we don't have the ground to do that, right? No matter our experience, no matter our background, we don't really, that's policy. In terms of the who to the what, I'll echo Amon's statement. We do not look for skill first at Seton Hall. Skill is great. We love it, but we can teach you the skills. We can teach you to get better. We can teach you maps. We can run you through drills. We can run you through all of that. Culture fit is number 1 on our list. And right next to it is grades. Because if you cannot pass your classes and you cannot be a culture fit, you will not succeed at a program. And when we're talking about collegiate, you also have to understand that there's a lot of talk currently about esports winter at the professional level. And someone brought up a good point. I was reading an article the other day, esports winter, collegiate summer. And it's very true. Valorant saw a decline in tier 2 due to some decisions made by Riot. What was the immediate reaction by the community? Well, we're colleges. These students are college-age students who haven't gone to college. We offer scholarships out to tier 2 Valorant pros. They come in with their 2,000, 300,000 streams to our university. They get a full ride. We get our name out to people who never heard of us, right? Overwatch 2 is going down. Where are those Overwatch 2 pros going? Collegiate. Why? They get to spend more years within the scene and also build up their careers to solidify those things that they started learning through their esports professional career, whether it be solidifying how to make their brand or solidifying how to manage a business, right? So I think it's important as we look forward, to think about what our place is individually as companies, as universities, as K through 12, but also remember, and I'll take the we're just playing games part. It's still important, right? I think words, as always, are very important. The NBA is just a bunch of dudes playing basketball, right? But the careers behind that are real. So when we look at who is supporting it, what are they supporting? You know, broadcasting, it's very successful for a small portion, sure, but the skills that people learn from broadcasting with us is what got them hired at, in our examples, at the Barclays Center, right? The skills that my players learned in analytics is what got them through 6 rounds of interviews with IBM and a $92,000 a year position. So when you're looking at your skills, at least in collegiate, it's about putting your students to actual work, right? And giving them that work so that they can graduate with those 3, 4, 5 years of experience in actually doing the work and then applying it. Can we codify that? Certainly, it's something that we're all working on. We've seen programs like Shenandoah University doing great work, Boise State leading the charge in terms of broadcast. But I think it's very important to remember what it is that we do, what our industry is. And it's important to also remember where we can talk about how policy can affect us. But it's important to recognize if we're not making that policy, if we're not enforcing or pushing for that, then we can't really touch on that to change our industry. What we can do is take advantage of what we do, what grounds we cover, how can we positively affect our students, make sure that we make positive decisions for them, and make sure that overall we work together to make it as best as possible.
Awesome. Thank you, Victor. Josh, let's go to you, and then we're going to take a break for 15 minutes. People want to get a drink, use the bathroom, and then when we come back, I want to go around the room and have everybody introduce themselves. Normally, people like to start with that, but I decided to do that as the comeback thing, just to get everybody in the room who might have been not here. So, Josh, what was the point you were going to make before? Anthony, you turn that mic off. Sorry. I think I would use
One of these things. There we go. Okay. So just to follow up, to Anthony's point, what's this all for? And I think Victor actually summarized it pretty well from a perspective of, through the lens of something like broadcast or shoutcasting, what is that sort of lending to the student, to the future? And being in the industry, one of the things that we're experiencing is the job shortage, right? Massive job shortage. We are struggling to find talented individuals that understand the audiovisual industry and esports for us. And that's why we developed a curriculum that's wrapped around. And it's a true 4-year high school curriculum, a middle school curriculum that will actually have the students walk away with a CTS, that in our world, that's our certification that we look towards. They'll walk away, basically, that's a career and technical education element. That's why we do it. We do it not just for Horizon and esports integration alone, right? Because we're selling this curriculum all around the country. And so, these students are going to be walking away with real transferable skills. And we really want to focus on that word when we look at it. And I think that's really important because what is the chance of them even going into shoutcasting, into esports? Well, once again, very small. It's a very small industry. And I do agree that the way that this has been sort of spun is that it's esports. I mean, we fall into that trap as well, right? We say it's an esports curriculum, but at the end of the day, it is a larger industry, multiple industries that are affecting that, right? So I think there's a lot of truth to that element. And that's really one of the reasons why we have done what we've done in the state is to give students something that they're very interested in already. Having 2 teenagers, like I get that, I understand that. They're extremely interested in the entire ecosystem and the way it works. And so, what is the outcome? The outcome should be at a K-12. Actually, we're going to look at it as a K-20 should be really how we should be looking at this, to support what Stockton's doing and this continuing education element. How are we best setting up these students, these learners, for a career path? And if we don't understand where the industry pain points are within the curriculum and identifying them, then we're not doing, I don't think, a really great job at preparing those individuals. If I had this one example, in Edison, New Jersey, we deployed, our curriculum up there. 3 of the students thought it was a competitive element, right? That's what they thought they were going to be doing. And they were very surprised at the rigor of what they were going through, right? They're going through the histories, they're doing SWOT analysis, they're doing financial literacy, they're going through business planning, everything that really involves an element of esports. What we're seeing is these students' attendance are going up and their grades are going up because they want to be involved in the element of learning about the industry. And 3 other students have really shown an extreme interest, and we're actually looking at bringing them as internships, over when they're a little older. They're freshmen now, but to bring them in, and that's really, I think, one of the goals that we have to look at and truly understand the educational model, and there needs to be more influence from the industry, and the education world needs to understand where the pain points are in the industry. I think that's been a massive disconnect that we've seen, because they're taking this thing called esports. They think it's shiny. They think it's something that we're going to bring to our school, and everything's going to be right as rain. And that's not the case at all. Because the students themselves understand it better than the administration is bringing on. and that's been this massive disconnect. And we've been coming in to help with that development to really give that direction here in the state. So, why do we do it? What is the outcome? The outcome is really preparing those students for the industry. Even shoutcasting can prepare a student. Like in our curriculum, we're also looking at Unreal Engine development. What we do with broadcast in Unreal Engine. I've got Ocean City High School. They are developing a massive Unreal Engine studio, big direct view LED walls, Unreal Engine at a high school, because what they're seeing is this job element of training students in the latest in broadcast technology. Yes, they're learning software development through Unreal Engine, but then they're applying that to broadcast too. So
I think that is feel free, Anthony. No, go ahead.
That's a really good point, and I'm sorry, Noel, I'll give it to you if you want. My
Hello.
my son just started. Anyone here from the ACEA? I didn't see everybody here. There's an organization called the Atlantic County Economic Alliance, and they started a work training for the aviation center. And my son started learning on the flight simulators over the weekend. And it's really cool, Eric. There's all these other jobs like, well, you start here and it goes here. You can become an engineer, you can become a mechanic, you become a pilot, you can become it's just all these things. And I think that's where we need to get to with esports or interactive arts, right? This is the curriculum and you can go to all these different places, but these places need to be, to your point, legitimate places.
Yes.
Right.
And I think the good news is, if we're going to find something to end on that's good news, is the development of that other places is massive. AR, VR, there are so many different angles of what's coming next that we haven't even discussed or talked about, and that will require tech jobs, tech training, and a focus on that. So let's take a 15-minute break so everybody can stretch their legs, get some fine Heyday coffee, best in Atlantic City, and we will come back. We're going to talk a little bit about gambling in esports. And then like I said, I want to go around the room and then we'll let everybody just chat and network with each other. Thank you again. All right, everybody, we do a 1-minute warning if you want to retake your seats. We got about an hour left and then we will recess for additional coffee and beverages. I will also make mention for anybody that's interested, after this is over, I'm going to be working with the folks from ACX1 Studios at the pier at Caesars to give a tour of their space. So if anybody's interested to come see the future vision for the ACX1 Studios at Caesars, which we hope will include both movies, audio, and esports / video games in the future. That'll be fantastic. All right. Alex, we have that second mic. You got it. Okay, great. So what I want to do, I know typically people do this at the beginning of these things, but I felt like it usually takes too long to get things started, and I wanted to get right into the conversation. But I would like to go around the room real quick and have everybody just introduce themselves, say a thing or two about what you do. But let's just be cognizant of time because we have a finite amount of it left. And we're going to start with David over here, and then we'll work our way to Sandy, and then through the tables.
Stand because I'm behind a screen here. David Scanlon. I'm the Chief of Staff at the New Jersey Casino Control Commission. Good to be here.
Thank you.
Sandy Chu from New Jersey Economic Development Authority. My focus is financial professional services sector as part of the strategic team, the EDA. That includes esports, sports wagering, cybersecurity, pop tech, fintech, and a few others emerging industries. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Sandy. Let's go to you, Rob.
Hello, everybody. I'm Rob Johnson, currently of Ventnor Ventures, a startup studio out of St. Pete, Florida, investing in actually our first business. We'll launch in New Jersey here in January. My background is 15 years in traditional sports, Philadelphia Eagles, Philadelphia Flyers, Jacksonville Jaguars, before moving to video games with Jackbox Games, Nerd Street Gamers, and then most recently, previous to this, Playfly Sports and Playfly Esports.
Hi, my name is David Natchez. I'm the Executive Director of the FinTech and Sports Wagering Innovation Center. So we're a sister innovation center to this one up in Jersey City, and we're focused on the online gaming industry and these FinTechs that support it.
Eric Johnson with Lenovo. If you don't know, we're the hardware manufacturer for a lot of the computer technology you see here in the room today. Thank you for having us.
Andrew Metellus, Intel BDM at SHI, covering public sector.
Melissa McEntee. I am an education strategist with SHI supporting K-12 and higher ed throughout the country.
Hello, everyone. Noelle Krishna-Naylor. I'm currently the program chair for the Bachelor of Science in Esports Management at Stockton.
Hi, everybody. Jennifer Ahrens, a faculty member in our esports management program here at Stockton.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rob Schwartz. I'm the co-founder, the CMO, and president of the music department over at ACX1 Peers, ACX1 Studios, which is Caesar's Peers. And hopefully you guys stick around and take a tour with us after this.
My name is Eric Weiss. I'm the president of North America for Odds On Compliance. We're a consulting company for casino gaming and online gaming, including esports, sports betting, and internet gaming. But my background is I spent 30 years with the New Jersey Division of Gaming Enforcement, was responsible for all of the technology approvals in the state of New Jersey, as I was the director of the slot lab here, including the launch of online gaming in 2013.
Which is the most successful in history, not to brag.
That's all. Anthony God, my background is in television development and video game development. And most recently, we started Esports Illustrated in partnership with Sports Illustrated. And we also are working on legitimizing and legalizing real money video games. And Eric and I are in a compliance, creating an association for compliance and creating the frameworks for that throughout the country.
Which we are going to talk about when we get to the gambling conversation.
Hello, everybody. My name is Hai Ung. I'm from the Esports Integrity Commission. I am the ambassador for integrity.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sage Delval with FNS Digital. I serve as the CEO. We are a custom software, hardware, and cloud computing company focused primarily in gaming.
Pedro Dobrev, finance faculty at Stockton, and I helped create, together with Jennifer and Noel, the esports management degree at Stockton.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Byrne, and I'm from Stockton. I'm currently the program assistant for the School of Business.
Hello, everyone. Tara Marsh, also from Stockton University. I am the internship coordinator for the Esports Management Program. So selfish plug, if you need an intern down the road, I'm your girl.
I have two of them. I have more coming.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Derek Walton. I'm the CEO of a startup called Spheros. We are building a portable data company that allows parents and individuals to share their data with companies to provide consent and information until kids are available or people have better control of their data.
Hi, I'm Maya Weber. I work with Derek, focused on customer success and operations.
Hello, my name is Joshua Kell. I'm the CEO of Horizon AVL and Esports Innovation. Horizon AVL is a 40-year-old AV integration firm here in the state of New Jersey. We've been developing technology, large venues and classroom technology, and we work in the education sector. And then Esports Integration helps colleges, universities, high schools, middle schools to develop their esports programs.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gene Palermo. I'm with the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, and I'm a project officer with the sector development team, helping the sector leads, including Sandy over there, with their various projects here in the state.
Hey, good afternoon. David Ramsey, Manager of Sector Development, also at the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, working with Sandy and Gene to support the esports industry in the state and other related industries.
Good afternoon, everyone. Erin Hogan, research analyst with the Casino Control Commission. Thanks for having us. Patricia Fedowitz, senior research analyst, Casino Control Commission.
Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Terenic. I'm with Chelsea Economic Development Corporation. Our office is right here in this building, and we're working to connect the people in the Chelsea neighborhood of Atlantic City with career opportunities, among a lot of other things. And that's why we're here. Thanks for having us, Andrew.
Alex, real quick before you hand the microphone over, I want to introduce everybody to Alex Schindler, who's one of my interns. Alex is unique in a lot of different ways, but I think he is a testament to the power of esports and to why he's in this room right now. Alex, where did you grow up?
So funny enough, I'm not from PA. I'm not from New Jersey. I'm from Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
And where did you attend high school?
I went to high school in Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay, so you went to private school in Ohio and grew up in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and chose Stockton University. Now, Alex, why did you choose Stockton University?
So the reason I chose Stockton University is when I was a junior, just from being in the professional Rocket League scene, I knew that Stockton had an elite Rocket League team, and the players from the Stockton Rocket League team reached out to me at the time. And I came toward the university, knew they had an elite level team. And from kind of joining Stockton, I wanted to play for the Rocket League team. I wanted to go around, travel with the team, try to win tournaments and help kind of build an atmosphere and environment at Stockton. So it's the main reason I actually ended up coming to Stockton, and I absolutely love it. So definitely one of the best decisions of my life.
Which I find incredible. I mean, Alex is not only a hard worker and anybody that's looking to hire an incredible graduate when he does graduate, but you don't have him for 3 years because I need him. It really is incredible because, you know, schools put an incredible amount of resources into recruiting talent and keeping talent in state, et cetera. And when you have something like a esports team that's recruiting for you and the exposure that that brings in, that's why the support is so strong in terms of creating this commitment to the curriculum that supports this, right? So Alex manages the Rocket League team, competes in it, handles tournaments, has done various events for us, has even been involved in the soccer team, you know, in Atlantic City as well. So it really is for anybody out there listening in the universe, you get a lot more than just playing esports when you participate on that. It opens up a lot of different doors. So I thought we had a pretty awesome discussion when it comes to. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes. Very good point. I am so sorry, Sandy. Let's unmute anybody. Victor and Sarah, since you guys are the last with us, do you want to introduce yourselves real quick? If not, I can introduce you on your behalf if you're not available. If you want to unmute everybody, that's cool. Victor?
Yep. Hello,
Cool.
everyone. Again, my name is Victor Gomez. I serve as the esports manager here at Seton Hall University. Very sorry I couldn't come out there in person today. I had meetings right up until this point, so I had no time to drive down. But lovely to see you all and meet you all, even though virtually.
And Victor and I were on a panel, I believe it was Newark Tech Week, right, Victor? Is that correct? The panel that we were on together? So one of the interesting components about it is Victor on that panel had one of his former students with him who attended Seton Hall, who was recently hired by Stony Brook University to build their esports program from scratch. So here's a graduate student who was 4 years involved at Seton Hall, participated in esports, gained a lot of the same skills working under Victor, and then landed a job building that infrastructure component of the amateur scene. So I know, one of the things that we do talk about is some of the failures in the esports level on the professional ranks with crazy attrition and overvalues of franchises and a lot of the same bubble bursting hype that existed during the .com era. But one thing I would like to promote, which I'm a big believer in, is what the amateur scene looks like and the potential strength for that, because those types of tournaments and that type of interactivity and bringing students together, I think does offer a tremendous potential for a solid base of esports events around the country. Sarah, are you able to introduce yourself? If not, I can definitely do that. Sarah could just be listening. So Sarah Grady works with the Levinson Institute for Gaming, Hospitality, and Tourism, which I'm a part of as well. I noticed that Jane Berkowitz was on before, and she's the director as well. So I'm very, very grateful for their participation. Amon Green was on. We had a lot of people earlier that probably didn't stick around post break, but all good. Let's move away from the conversation of higher ed and K through 12 and talk a little bit about betting on esports. I have the Casino Control Commission here. We've had obviously Eric, who was with the DGE for just a short period of time. Only 30 years, Eric. That's all you gave them. Slot machines still had coins in them. That's fantastic. But obviously, being in Atlantic City, there's conflicting thoughts here when it comes to esports and gambling and the nexus that exists. One thing to recognize is that esports is primarily something played by younger people, right? Who are oftentimes not even of age to step foot in a casino. And in fact, the biggest prize winners in esports are, generally speaking, on average 17, 18 years old. So that offers, that creates a very, very interesting dynamic. I would say that the potential in my head, I think my batteries are failing a little bit, so I might switch mics out with, do you have the other mic that's got my logo on it? Yeah. Is that a little bit clearer? Yeah, it is. I think the potential for running tournaments that people can bet on and also having head-to-head esports for money and the gamification of video games for, from an iGaming standpoint is something that's coming. And it's something that is a huge part of European esports culture and Asian esports culture. I know it's something that you guys have been working on helping build the framework to have happen in the United States. I'm curious to hear the room's opinion, both from a business standpoint, but also from a concern standpoint of how you feel about betting in esports and gambling in general as it relates to gambling on video games. One thing that I've always said is each casino, which has an unlimited amount of space, I eventually see them having a esports style room, like a poker room, where you could go show up for a Madden micro tournament for $500 on a Wednesday, or just play your friend for $10 head to head in whatever it is you want to participate in. I don't know how close we are to making that a reality, but I'm curious to get the room's opinions on that. Eric, can I get your perspective first on when it comes to what kind of framework needs to exist for these ideas to happen?
Sure. So you brought up a whole bunch of different topics. The age of the contestants, video game gambling, kind of the way we view it right now. You can do any of those things in New Jersey. It's approvable. The question is whether or not the casinos will embrace that as a betting opportunity. What I want to talk about more is there's two issues. There's esports betting as a market, right? Esports, just like any traditional sports, you got Major League Baseball, you got NFL, you can bet on those sports and you can bet on in-game wagers along those lines. So you take that as a betting opportunity and you bring in Valorant or any other competition that's out there, and you can offer that as a wagering opportunity for people. And that exists today in New Jersey and approximately 18 or 19 states around the country that authorize online sports betting. But then there's a whole nother category, which is like video game gambling, which would be head to head or against the house, where I just bet you heads up, I can beat you. Or you see you see this online in the social world, and they call it skill-based gaming, and it's a whole different category, and it's totally unregulated. It's making a ton of money out there, but there's still policy issues that are involved with that. And we could talk about both of those things, but for right now, let's just talk about the regulated world.
Is that what we call the gray area, the gray market?
Yeah, exactly. There's a total gray market out there. You can call it a gray market. I just call it unregulated because it comes down to how you define gambling, right? So, and it's a state by state, game by game basis, because gambling could mean that there is an element of chance. Any element of chance can result in the game being deemed gambling. If there's any element of chance involved, it could be a predominance test, predominance of chance involved. And there's a couple of other tests that have to be performed, and it depends on the case law and the laws of each individual state on whether or not it's considered gambling. If it's considered gambling, it has to be regulated. If it's considered skill, totally unregulated and offered through, the Apple Play stores, and you see it. You see these bingo games. You see all kinds of different games that are being played under the guise of skill. And and part of the problem with that is, like in a traditional skill-based event, like in a marathon or a chess tournament, the people are present. You can see them and you know who they are. You know they're following the rules. But when you offer it in the online space, you don't even know if you're playing a real person. You don't know if the outcome's been scripted. So that's where the need for regulation exists, right? And it needs to kind of come out of the gray space and into the white space, I would call it, or regulated space. So, yeah. So again, what exists today in New Jersey, you can create skill-based games. You can play them in a tournament style thing that you described right now in the casinos and have sit and go tournaments for Halo or whatever you're competing against or competing in. You can have those. You can offer skill-based games which are tested and approved by the Division of Gaming Enforcement. But throughout the country, it's different. Some states, New Jersey is unique when it comes to that aspect of it, the skill-based head-to-head, having regulations, because regulations exist in New Jersey. They exist in Nevada as well.
Does the fact that we are such a strong leader in iGaming in that sector play into this? In other words, the ability, because we're one of only 5 states, I believe, that has iGaming. Is that correct? 6?
I think it's 7 now.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, and you talked about the age of the contestants and concerns about those things, right? Like, that's a concern. Obviously, it's a concern, but it's a concern that's been addressed through the iGaming regulations. How do they go through a KYC process of knowing who the customer is and having responsible gaming controls in place to help people limit the exposure they have to how much they're gambling?
Because those are the same problems, right? We worry about a kid gambling on sports when he's not supposed to, or on wagering on your, on a roulette game, a digital roulette game, the same way we'd worry about them placing bets on esports, right?
Yeah, exactly. So those issues have been resolved through the regulatory process, and pretty much every jurisdiction that has sports betting or iCasino, everyone has kind of modeled after New Jersey when it comes to policy on how you can control that. So yeah, those issues have been resolved, but in the unregulated space, there's no standard. There's nothing, there's no oversight on that. So how robust is it that they have to test the person's age, and what is the minimum age requirement for a skill-based wagering contest if they're taking wagers on that? It's if it's unregulated, there's no standard. There's no level playing field.
And I'm guessing the ability to have a robust regulated market is deteriorated because of this gray market that exists. And that almost has to come with creating the regulated market, is being able to say, if you are in this unregulated space, you either A, need to get regulated, or B, need to be banned from play.
Well, let me just make one thing clear. Just because it's unregulated doesn't mean that they're doing things unethically. There are standards that they have to, they publish the rules. They publish the age of the contestants. They've gotten legal opinions on what they think they have to be. And it's on a state by state basis, right? They've done that. They say, look, if we're doing things unethically, people would sue us. We would be challenged in the courts, and it would prevent us from doing business. The problem with that is there still is no regulatory standard. There's no oversight of those games. They say basically leave it to ourselves. We can self-regulate, and if we're doing it unethically, we'll be challenged and we'll go out of business. I'm saying that there's still the policy issues. There still has to be a level playing field for everyone that in the space that wants to do things legally, that wants to do things above board and in full basically what regulation does, it provides you with two things. It provides you with a level playing field, but it also allows you to establish the good character, honesty, and integrity of the companies that are doing business in the state. So not only are the games evaluated to make sure they're fair and they're working properly, it establishes rules regarding payments. It establishes rules regarding advertisements. It establishes rules regarding responsible gaming issues, age of contestants, taxation. All of those things occur. And the licensing process is the most important thing. Who are you playing with? When you register for an account online in the gray space, who are they? Who are the people you're registering with that you're giving your PII information to? There's no standard of integrity when it comes to who those people are. And I think that what's coming, I think that states are going to wake up to this issue, and you're going to see regulation in the unregulated space now. They're gonna want to address those policy issues.
Real quick before. Alex, get on the mic, and then I call on High afterwards.
That's not gambling.
If you don't mind using the mic, they can't hear online.
That's not gambling though, right? It's people wagering on those kids playing Fortnite, right?
One of the mics has to be off. If you could just turn that off.
So if you're saying that there's a Fortnite contest occurring and the winner's receiving money from that Fortnite contest, right? That would be a skill-based event. And that contest in and of itself could be considered gambling depending on where the event's taking place and what the local laws are for that event. It depends. And so again, what about, is it a competition where people are physically present, or is it a competition that's online? I'm asking you, I don't know.
Yes. Right. I mean, they're 18.
Right. It's not. It doesn't matter. Who the player is, how old the player is. You can bet on soccer players that are 16. Okay.
In order for so there are several things that we're talking about here. I think confusion is when Andrew used the word gray. It's not gray, right? Gray in the gaming world, in the gambling world, when we say gray, it means that it's an operator that's not licensed, that's operating in a kind of a limbo state of law. It's not illegal, but it's not legal. In this case, it's two kinds of things. It's competitions. So like what you're talking about in terms of epics, Fortnite competition. Now the test for gambling is the chance consideration and prize chance consideration. So that's the standard test usually that is pretty universal. So you have to pay to join. You have a chance to win something if you win, and there's an element of chance in it. So if one of those three legs fail, then it's not gambling in most jurisdictions, depending on how they interpret. So how a lot of those tournaments fall in is they fall in as basically a competition, no different from a pie baking contest, which interestingly for the long time in New Jersey was actually illegal, because New Jersey actually had a law against pie eating competitions at state fairs. And because of that, we actually couldn't have esports.
There was the great pie eating controversy of 1931 that caused it, which everyone
it's
remembers.
Piegate, right?
Piegate,
You've heard of Pizzagate. This is Piegate. Now, so in many states, competitions that involve, skill-based games, you can basically pay a fee to join the tournament, and if you win, you win the prize pool. A lot of times, how they skirt certain gambling laws is that prize pool is fixed. So it's not a pari-mutuel. It's not a case where, it's not like it's basically a sweepstakes.
It's not a rotate. It's not
Right. It's not
20% of
like,
what everybody puts in. So
it's
like a
only
50-50 one.
price when you paid the admission fee to join, and then you join. Then there's also another concept called PvP, which is player versus player. So you and I could decide that we're going to play a game of Madden and we're going to put $50 on the line. And if you win, you get not 200, but 180 because the platform takes a vig, right? So depending on where you are in the US, in the 50 states, they will sometimes not call it a vig, they'll call it a service charge. And because of that, they can get under the gambling rule, which is you can't take a vig. So it's a service charge because you're using a credit card, you're charging a fee. But that's PvP. Right? In Jersey, technically that's allowed. And that's where it is not illegal. It is unregulated. Yeah.
Right. And that's the same concept. The PvP concept is
when you get into the weeds, like earlier when Andrew was talking about Europe, the big market in Europe is really just sports betting on esports. It's huge, right? It's hundreds of millions, sometimes even hitting the billions. Handle is comparable to soccer, which is huge there. But that's betting on the outcome of a game or in-run. Now, esports is great for in-run bets. So in-run bets are, you can bet as the game is being played. You can bet who's going to get the next headshot, who's going to be, getting this, or who's going to, get first blood. So those bets are really fast, really addictive, and it makes a lot of money. So in esports in Europe, there's that. Nothing
that
happens
requires
everything is illegal in Asia.
But doesn't that require a partnership with the companies that have the data? Because
there's two, right? There's we can use the gray. There are companies that scrape data, and then there are companies that get official data. So there's a company you can look up called Grid, and Grid uses official data from Riot on certain games, and then you could compare that with a company like PandaScore, which scrapes data. But in terms of their regulation, the regulation currently in the jurisdictions in Europe, they don't differentiate. It's buyers beware.
Is that Baze? Like, do they do it legitimately, Baze Esports? Because I know they're
Baze has a couple.
Okay.
Yeah, they also have one. They have one for Riot, but it's licensed individually.
Right.
Because one thing that you have to remember in esports is that nothing in esports is public domain. So everything there's a super rights owner behind it, and they own everything, including the data stream. So unlike sports, where during the Supreme Court case with the fantasy sports in baseball, it's been deemed that if it's an event, it happened, all the stats, it's PD, right? It's public domain. Esports, if you want the direct feed from the game, that's covered under DMCA. So that's copyrighted information. So unless you license it from a publisher, you're not getting that data. So obviously that's the best data that you can get. And, there is work there to be done. But I think, to Eric's point, the unregulated space, which is the PvP, because they're running it under tournaments, and the maybe even bigger scale tournaments, it's fine until somebody gets chipped. Right? There's actually a pretty good company out there. They're one of the premiers for PvP, for example. It's called Gamer Saloon. You can look them up. You can basically go on, sign up. You can look for postings. There'll be people who will post $25 games, $5 games.
There's NBA players who have spent seven figures on that website.
And the biggest fence there, the biggest hurdle there is sharks. Because obviously, if it's a game of skill, there's going to be some guy there that's just going to be basically a pool hustler, right? It's no different from any other sport that you can gamble on. But with the event ones, it can be regulated and it can't be done. It can be done properly, and it's Europe has already demonstrated that it can be done. Now, what I think one important point that Eric tried to say is this: see, if you had regulations, then you know level playing field. You know that if I signed up for this tournament playing Call of Duty, or if I sign up this tournament playing Valorant, I know I'm going to get paid. Because if I don't get paid, somebody's going to lose their license, somebody's going to get in trouble. One big problem in esports now is that there isn't those assurances because there isn't that form of licensing. And a lot of professional esports players actually get gypped. You join a tournament, you win first prize, you can't find the tournament operator anymore. They've disappeared and you don't get your money. And one of my partners is one of the first attorneys practicing esports law in the US, and he's currently chasing after major companies for unpaid prize pools. So that stuff happens. And if we had regulations, it would help because there would be something on the line. You couldn't just disappear. It would also help from the
to put it in escrow or something if they're coming into the state.
It would also help with an integrity situation. Now, there's another interesting challenge for New Jersey, which is currently the rule states that you cannot take a bet where the event is happening. Right? That clause is still there. That's not how they interpret that one.
You're in a casino. If the event's in the casino, you can take the wager with a sports book at the casino. If it's in an event center anywhere in the country, if you're in a jurisdiction, even in New Jersey, let's say it's in MetLife Stadium, they're doing a major tournament there. There's a process for having that tournament approved for wagering. It can be approved for wagering, even though but it would be online wagering or a local in-house wagering. I'd like to just address another thing too. When it comes to gambling, I wouldn't say it's necessarily important to regulate events if there's no gambling taking place. Events need to be able to be operated free of regulation, right? Where regulation's required is when gambling's occurring on the event or gambling is occurring between the contestants, like in a head-to-head bet. I'm going to bet online head-to-head wager. I'm going to bet against you. I'm going to compete against a group of people for a high score for the day. Let's say you're playing Visual Blitz and they say, okay, everybody's going to play $5 and I'm going to play my round, and my round goes onto a leaderboard. And at the end of the day, whoever the top 5 leaders will get the money that was put into that, and there's a cut taken out of that. When that's occurring online and you can't see the people you're playing against, that's when regulation really needs to come into play. And I'm not necessarily saying that it necessarily has to be gambling. It could be deemed a skill-based event. Remember, we talked about prize, chance, consideration. Well, you take away the chance because it's 2 people competing based upon their skill. There's not really a chance involved in that event. It's just a skill-based event. Truly, it is. It can be considered really a skill. But my point of view is that it still needs to be regulated somehow to make sure that it's fair, to make sure you know who the contestants are that are competing for things like the beating the fish, the sharks, and the age of the contestants. There still needs to be governmental intervention from the standpoint of what's the age of the person that's competing, right? And how do you validate the age of the person? How do you tax it? If there is something that's done wrong and there's patron complaints and people aren't getting their money, the licensing process ensures that happens, right? Who do you go to complain if you don't have regulation and license the people that are operating online? And the fact is, like when you're talking about a marathon, you're talking about a chess tournament, which really doesn't happen that much. The marathons are a good example. again, you can see the contestants, everybody's involved in that. And it happens once, you have the rock and roll marathon here, you have whatever, but in the online space and you're competing with video games, you can have a new tournament every 5 minutes or every couple of minutes, and it raises questions of responsible gaming. Because if you can keep betting and saying, okay, I want to play again for money, I want to play again for money, I want to play again for money, there's issues of responsible gaming there too.
So that's one of the things that my organization does. So we're a nonprofit, we're a global nonprofit, we're a regulator for integrity, and most of the large AAA tournaments are, we oversee. So ESL tournaments, DreamHack tournaments, we do drug testing, we do all the usual things that you would expect from a sports. And we work with regulators, gambling regulators, to help them provide that sort of that check that there is integrity being monitored. Because most of the definition for sports that you can bet on. So in the US, we do it differently here. We do it what's called catalog. So most jurisdictions will tell you what games you can bet on, what kinds of sports you can bet on, and those things are legal. So you can say NBA, NFL, and so on and so forth. And a lot of that also ties with this thing called that it has to have a federation overseeing the rules. And that goes back to Eric's point. It creates that level playing field. You know what the rules are, you know that nobody's going to break them, or if somebody breaks them, it will be reported, and bets can be unwound and stuff like that. So that's usually a challenging point. Esports has no federation. It's very difficult for esports to have a federation, again, because of the copyrighted nature of esports. Would you trust Riot to run their own federation? Maybe not, right? But are they going to appoint a federation? Who knows, right? So there are all these unknowns in terms of esports. One of the things that, Eric pointed out, which is very important, is a term that in esports or in competitive gaming, we call smurfing, which is basically I sign up and I get a pro player to play while I'm just sitting there watching him. Because you don't know who's playing. And even if you require a camera, the camera could be pointed at me. I could have another person with a second screen, with a second
That's the issue with biometrics too. You could have somebody sign in with their palm and say, okay, this is who I am here playing. But then the minute that process is over,
exactly,
it's about having constant, currency.
So those are technological issues that maybe one day we may have a solution for. But at this point, the safest bet is to bet on an actual physical tournament that's operated by somebody who's licensed by either somebody like us or some other jurisdiction that regulates the tournament operators in terms of their integrity practices. And and after that it's fine. It's just basically the data stream.
And can I point out that one of the solutions, if you had a poker style esports room at casinos, smurfing becomes very difficult because you can go through the sign-in process, and then there's a much easier mechanism to make sure that people who they are, or who are where they're supposed to be. All right. Let's. Anybody else have any points to add or want to discuss gambling on esports? All right. The last thing I wanted to hit before we let everybody out, which may be early. Yeah, well, pretty much on time. I just wanted to talk about community benefits to esports really quickly, and then just make a quick pitch for the EIC and the work that we do here to companies or companies that you know. So one of the reasons I was most excited to take this job was I really felt like there was an amazing opportunity to use esports to get a lot out of underprivileged communities in terms of STEM benefit and really connecting with kids and being able to relate with them and direct them into careers. And I'm proud to say that, the work that we've done here so far since June when we got our equipment has been awesome. And we currently have programming 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday after school with various area groups like the AC Youth Services, Boys and Girls Club, and a charter school that's starting with us in January as well. And I can tell you firsthand that this collaboration is pretty awesome. We have our interns from Stockton coming in here, mentoring these kids. They're as young as 9 or 10 years old as 15 or 16 years old. And I think you do see a lot of the benefits of teamwork and camaraderie and communications and the things that we were talking about, just basic stuff that I think a lot of us take for granted if we participated in the traditional sports route, that these kids are able to enjoy here. So I would like to just highlight some of the community benefit of this. And really it's about a pathway of keeping some of our best and brightest in state. New Jersey has had one of the worst brain drains over the last 30 years, where students, the top performing students in this state, leave and go to school out of state and often don't come back. And part of the reasons why is because when they go to school out of state, they make their connections out of state, and the job resources are out of state, and the school's helping them out of state. And a lot of them don't return. So one of the things that I've noticed is the STEM kids don't care about traditional athletics. And that's a good news thing for New Jersey, because we have not been in higher ed the most successful state when it comes to traditional athletics. But when you look at a school like Stockton recruiting through Rocket League, you can sort of see how esports flips that on its head. And those students don't care how good Rutgers football is, or the fact that we don't have 6 or 7 Division I schools. So I think that it really provides a huge community benefit to keep New Jersey kids, especially our best performing kids, in state, and then going to these amazing institutions that we've built here. So, one of the peripheral benefits of everything that we're doing here is to try to build that pathway. And it sort of ends with there being great jobs in the, let's call it the video game industry in New Jersey. Let's not call it the esports industry, because again, the jobs are going to come in the greater, broader video game industry. And maybe that supports some of the competitive elements that we're defining as esports. But the video game industry as a whole is a multi-billion-dollar, very, very true time-tested industry that I don't think is going anywhere, and that is not suffering nearly as many blights on its reputation as, quote, esports does when it comes to a lot of these things that we hear happening with layoffs, et cetera. So just wanted to point that out. Does anybody have any comment on positive things that they've seen from the esports space as far as it affects the community? I know we've talked a lot of negative stuff, but I'm curious to get some positive stuff.
Yeah, so we've seen a positive outcome because of esports in our overall recruiting. I was speaking about Jen about this. We run an R&D program for Stevens Institute, and we challenge the students to come up with different software and hardware initiatives. And we found that we are in a digital world. A lot of the students are collaborating online. The students that had an esports background, one, collaborated better than ever. They knew how to chat with each other. They were used to working wonky hours because they were staying up. They had the duration to stare at a screen much longer than the students that didn't. So they came out with projects that were, one, more creative, because they are used to working in a realm that's very creative. They're used to seeing characters that are abstract. So their products inherently were more abstract. And then also a really interesting part is these students have an interesting skill set where they have the facet of networking, hardware, and software. So they understand the bottlenecks and capabilities of their machine. A lot of the time they say, hey, I'm going to add a new graphics card to this. It may not be level of where they're, engineering chipsets, but at least they're aware of the resources that they have available. So they knew what to look for in software to begin to develop more efficient products and understand those things. And then they looked a lot at latency, network, and those skills all transfer. We've seen some of the most innovative things come out of the gaming sector, to be able to use small chips, to be able to ship products that are high quality on, the smallest AMD graphics cards. So we saw really positive stuff along those lines. And the interns that we've gotten from the esports department, or hires that we've gotten, have always been a little more interesting than the typical traditional path that we, a lot of our other team members have.
Yeah, that's incredible stuff. And I think, and hi, let's go to you. Alex, can you give hi the mic? Sorry. It's right behind the podium.
I think earlier when several people were talking about K-12, and you're talking about how maybe some of the esports programs are draining from the traditional sports programs. I think one important thing that esports provides is it provides access to sports that some students are just unable to participate in normal circumstances. In our society, in the United States, sports is a major part of society. And when you have a child that may be disabled or differently abled in different ways, they cannot participate in a lot of traditional sports. They can't even cheer squad, some of them, but there is a game that they can play. And I think where it is important, where we can get sort of penetration, is it's natural for somebody who's already into sports. Like he could be, he or she could be a footballer, a jock, or the female version of a jock. They're going to be attracted to anything competitive, right? At the K-12 level, especially at high school level, they're going to play everything. They'll play baseball when baseball is in season. They'll play football when football is in season. But where the opportunity really lies for esports is to be able to provide competitive sports to a segment of students that traditional sports cannot address. I've held tournaments where I've had people come in motorized wheelchairs with MS, and they're playing games. And you can see the smile on their face that they're part, finally, of a community, that they can actually participate with somebody. They don't have to be good at it. They just want to be part of it. And I think that's, one way that you can reach, that esports can really touch, that a lot of other sports can't. The other thing that's interesting is there are a lot of introverts that will actually become extroverts when they're playing esports. Why? Because they know nobody's seeing them. And there are actually a lot, this might be surprising, but there is a significant number of cosplayers. So cosplay is a, kind of a adjunct of the video game world where you dress up like your favorite video game characters. A lot of cosplay participants are actually introverts, but they dress up, and that gives them that courage to come out. So there's a lot of interesting things that, video games can augment real games. It provides opportunities.
Add on to that, what that provides, going back to your point earlier, some of those basic communication skills in a business setting, the ability to take direction, to take coaching, to become a leader, you get those in some of those traditional athletic scenes. And when you take a group of people out of the ability to participate in that, it's a tremendous disservice. But to your point, those students, whether they're disabled or they're socially not desirous of being in the traditional athletic scene, they get all of those benefits. They have a manager, they have a coach, they have to be at practice on time, they have to work hard to obtain their goals, they have to work as part of a community to get better. And that really is what I see working with these kids on a K through 12 basis, that they're learning how to do. And a lot of them have no interest in representing their school's traditional athletics, but they are putting on the shirt for AC Esports, and they're excited about it. So I think that's a pretty good place to wrap up. I want to just take any last comments from the audience before we, Rob, please. Alex is rushing the mic over to. Great job, Alex, by the way. Thank you. And James as well.
Yeah. Now, one quick thing just to tie this up into what it's going to take for private companies to invest in this space, knowing that esports has been historically tough. And we're looking at the 2026 enrollment cliff. I'm sure that the Stockton people here know that 18 years prior, not a lot of kids. So now this K through 12 program, helping kids get to college at a rate where kids will be going to college less. One, I think is going to put more kids in schools. Two, at time when schools are going to need, particularly smaller schools, are going to need these students and need this recruitment. So really the call would be from the state level, particularly from funding, and the schools themselves to be able to help these private companies in order to build these infrastructures, because bidding on your own is difficult. And the private companies will start leading the sector or make the kids the product. So really it's, what we're looking at in 2026, where we see and where we've already identified the opportunities for the K through 12. And if that goal is to get them to higher education, to get them into these programs where traditional sports isn't serving them, it's going to take the state, it's going to take the AIC, it's going to take the schools themselves to be there while this market develops, because private companies, particularly in this macro environment, they're not going to be able to raise to do this. So that's one thing I'd like to tie up here, is that it's going to take a lot of people in order to do this, if we're not just going to make the kids the product and what is going to be the end result here.
And if you look at how that works in traditional athletics, there's a lot of amateur organizations, governing organizations, that try to ensure that collective integrity, whether it's on a state level, which might be how it has to play out, or a national level. So anybody else want to make any final points, comments? All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming. Thanks to our online guests as well. I don't think there are any left, but that's fine. But I really appreciate this. I just want to make mention, if you are not a member of the EIC and you would like to be, I am more than happy to speak to you. Most of you are already in active conversations with us, but we are a member-driven organization as a nonprofit, and a lot of the work we do here not only is to build the business of video games and esports, but also to work with the community groups and ensure that they have access to these programs and curriculum as well. So that's just a little bit about us. So thank you very much. We'll be heading over to the pier at Caesars to get a tour of ACX1 and the future plans for what I hope to be the epicenter of esports or video game industry creation, movies, film, audio, all that fun stuff. And enjoy. Thank you all so much.